You're watching the Daily Climate Show on Sky News. On today's programme, Alok Sharma tells Sky News the COP26 summit will go ahead in Glasgow in November. A new initiative's launched to bring together the net zero aims of big financial institutions around the world. We speak to Mark Carney, who's chairing it. And replanting England's carbon-absorbing seagrass meadows. Hello and welcome to the UK's only daily climate news show where we track the changes happening to our world right now and meet those coming up with the solutions. We aim to take you to the heart of the climate crisis, explain the data driving the changes that are already affecting us, but also show you just how far we've come. Now, the president of COP26 has told Sky News the UK government is still planning for the summit to take place in Glasgow in November. It'll be the biggest climate meeting since the 2015 Paris Accord, where countries agreed to limit global warming to 2 degrees, ideally 1.5 degrees, above pre-industrial levels. Alok Sharma said plans are still in place for the conference to take place in person, although there will also be some virtual elements. He spoke to our climate correspondent, Lisa Holland.
I do not sense any desire from the part of countries to delay COP any further. And we are working very hard and planning on a physical event taking place in Glasgow in November. And actually what is really important is for all countries, the smaller countries, the larger countries, to sit together on a level playing field at the same table. That is what I'm being told when I'm speaking to governments, when I'm going around the world. And that is what we are working very hard to make sure happens.
You can't rule out, surely, that it won't take place in some other form, that it will be slimmed down, that large parts of it will be virtual. You surely have to be planning for that.
Well, as I said, what we want to ensure, and we're working very hard on this, is a physical COP. But you raise a very important point about the virtual aspects of this. And I've been very clear right from the start, is that I want this to be the most inclusive summit ever. And of course, we have learned over the last year that you can do things virtually. And if we can expand effectively the people who are able to attend virtually, then we will do that. And that is precisely what we're looking at now. But of course, it's also really important for these negotiations that they happen in a physical manner. As I said, that's what we're working on planning towards.
The UK has set itself this ambitious target, which has been applauded around the world, to reduce emissions by 78% by 2035. You'll be aware of some criticism that the policies are not in place to deliver on that ambition. What would you say to that?
Firstly, look at the record of what we've done. As I said, since the year 2000, we have been the country of all the G20 countries, the biggest economies of the world, where we have decarbonized the fastest. We have set out some of the policies. So the Prime Minister's 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution, which I worked on as well. We set that out last year. We set out the energy white paper as well, which set out a sort of a range of policies. And what we will be setting out before COP26 is our net zero strategy as well. So people will be able to see, how we're going to make the progress.
Well, ahead of the COP26 meeting, 40 world leaders have been invited by President Biden to take part in a virtual summit on Earth Day tomorrow. And there have been some significant announcements ahead of that. The UK government says it will reduce emissions by 78% by 2035 compared with 1990 levels. And today, EU member states have reached an agreement to make the bloc climate neutral by 2050. Well, with me is our diplomatic editor, Dominic Waghorn. So, Dominic, commitments being made ahead of Earth Day. So what else can we expect from this summit?
Well, first and foremost, this is about America. It's about America restoring its credibility on climate change after Donald Trump trashed it by pulling America out of the Paris Climate Change Agreement. So it's about America showing it can lead the way forward and restore the confidence of its allies on this crucial issue. So to that end, we're expecting an announcement about an ambitious goal that the Americans say they will announce tomorrow. No further details more than that, but they say it's going to be ambitious. Also significant is the Russians and Chinese are coming as well. So if you add them to the Indians and the Europeans and the Americans, it means that the world's big carbon emitters are all on board. In terms of China, we're probably not going to hear announcements from the Chinese at what is an American-organised event. But there is a sense of progress between China and America in the light of the Shanghai meeting between the Chinese climate envoy and his American counterpart, John Kerry, over the weekend. There's a sense that they agree on the same goals, but not necessarily how to reach them. It is vital that they all do make progress at this summit ahead of the COP26 in November, because at the moment things aren't moving in the right direction. In Paris, all countries agreed to reduce emissions, instead emissions are going up, and global temperature, average temperature, is increasing too.
Dominic, thank you. Well, we've got an Earth Day special episode of our Climate Cast podcast that's out on Friday, and you can find it wherever you normally get your podcast from. Now, let's take a look at some of the day's other climate news now. And a coroner's urging the government to change the law after air pollution led to the death of a 9-year-old girl. Ella Kissy-Deborah died of an asthma attack in 2013 after she was exposed to toxic air. Philip Barlow's report says ministers should set legally binding targets to reduce pollution levels. Ella's mum, Rosamond Kissy-Deborah, says the government isn't doing enough.
It's now or never. And, you know, we're going to COP26. We are world leaders. We need to show the rest of the world that we take this seriously. So it's not about 2030, 2040. It's about now. The general public needs to know the impacts that toxic air is having on their whole being.
Australia plans to invest an extra $417 million on projects that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, says the money will be spent on building hydrogen-producing hubs and carbon capture technology. Mr Morrison has been widely criticised for not doing enough to tackle climate change. Biofuel made from chip fat might not be as environmentally friendly as first thought. A new study by the Transport and Environment Campaign Group suggests there's no way of proving used cooking oil that's imported into the UK and Europe is sustainable. According to researchers, more than half of the used cooking oil that's made into fuel in Europe comes from abroad. Scientists are using robots to monitor the world's oceans. 500 floating monitors have been deployed by the Global Ocean Biogeochemistry Project to track the health of the sea. The robots will measure various things, including the acidity and temperature of the ocean. And people in Britain are going greener than ever before. A study by the WWF and University of York has found the UK's overall carbon footprint has fallen by 17%. Research showed a 25% rise in people adopting a plant-based diet, and the number of people using renewable energy has almost doubled in the last 18 months. UN Special Envoy on Climate Action, Mark Carney, is chairing a new initiative to bring together the net zero aims of many of the world's biggest banks, asset managers, asset owners and insurers. The former Bank of England governor will lead the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, which acts as an umbrella organisation for the various net zero coalitions launched by the financial sector. Well, earlier I spoke to Mark Carney and started by asking him about that scheme.
We're taking this alliance of banks, and for COP, for Glasgow, we're bringing them together with pension funds, so-called asset managers, and all the other parts of the system that are committed to net zero in one Glasgow alliance.
Well, yes, so that private investment, very important. But in terms of government spending, are you comfortable with the idea of the government spending a huge amount, given that we're coming out of a coronavirus pandemic, which is still raging worldwide? Do we have the money there to spend?
The issue is not just what you spend, but how you spend it. And as we emerge, and I'm obviously not the one to call exactly the point where we properly emerge from the coronavirus crisis, although the signs are more encouraging in the UK. As we emerge, it becomes more and more important that the weight of government, the support from government for the economy is focused on the future, is investment as opposed to current spending. So the type of spending in the economy of the future, which is more sustainable, which better integrates a digital economy, that becomes critical.
And US President Joe Biden is hosting the Earth Day Climate Summit this week. What would you like to see come out of that?
The first thing we wanted to see come out of that is exactly what's been announced today, that the core of the global financial system is ready and focused and there for this transition to net zero. The second thing is the type of commitments that the UK government is announcing, greater ambition from the largest industrialized countries. It's very important, obviously, at in that last regard, what the United States does and the knock-on impact of that. So we'll see higher climate ambition. But as you know, Anna, this is in the context of a critical year for the climate and for the global economy, because after this summit, the UK will be hosting the G7 in Cornwall in June, follow on through to a series of events in the run-up to Glasgow, with culminating in Glasgow in November.
Seagrass is a climate superhero. It can absorb huge quantities of carbon, clean surrounding seawater and stabilise the seabed. Well, today, England's largest seagrass planting effort got underway off the coast of Plymouth to try to support and improve the resilience of our marine environment. Our science correspondent Thomas Moore went along to lend a hand.
Off the coast of Plymouth, they're planting hope. Inside these Hessian bags are seeds of seagrass dropped to the bottom by volunteers from the Ocean Conservation Trust. They should grow into a lush underwater meadow.
Seagrass is a bit of a super plant. It's really important, provides us many ecosystem services. So it traps carbon from the atmosphere, does this really efficiently, can be up to 35 times more efficient than rainforest in capturing carbon in its sediment.
Seagrass shelters 5 times more fish than bare seabed, yet 92% of the meadows that once surrounded the coast have been lost.
If Britain's seagrass meadows were restored to how they once were, they'd store up to 11.5 million tonnes of carbon. That's roughly 3% of our annual emissions.
Nature could help us. The planet is heading towards 1.5 degrees of warming and the tipping points that could lead to the melting of vast ice sheets and the dieback of the Amazon. But new research shows as long as it's quickly cooled, the worst effects of climate change could be avoided.
If we were to cross a tipping point threshold, then the message is don't give up. There might still be this opportunity that we can get back and avoid the catastrophic change.
Nature removes carbon from the atmosphere far more cheaply and efficiently than any existing technology. Replanting seagrass is a start, and it could have a crucial future. Thomas Moore, Sky News in Plymouth.
Tomorrow on the Daily Climate Show, we've got a bumper Earth Day programme. We'll see how people around the world are marking the day and bring you all the key developments from the leaders' meeting hosted by President Biden. That's at the same time tomorrow on Sky News. See you then.